Hello everyone, my name is Najia Kapadia and I'm your arts teacher for the summer camp. This camp we're doing a series on famous artists, so I'm going to teach you how to paint like 4 famous artists. Today we are going to study an American sculptor, Alexander Calder. So let me share the presentation with you and then we'll start working on his artwork. So let's start. So Alexander Calder, he was born in 1898 and he died in 1976. So he's basically in the time of modern art. He was an American sculptor known for inventing wire sculptures and mobiles, which is a type of kinetic art which relied on careful weighing to achieve balance and suspension in the air. Later, I'm going to show you the pictures and you know what I'm talking about. So initially what he did, he used motors to make his mobiles move, but then he abandoned that method and he started using the air currents. Um, and he did not limit his art to sculptures. He also created paintings, jewelry, theater sets, and costumes. So he always enjoyed making art, although he's a trained mechanical engineer in his early 20s. He began to pursue painting a few years after receiving the engineering degree. He excelled at mathematics, and the experience was later applied to his unique artistic approach. So he's basically known for his pioneering use of metal uh, and movement. So this is the kind of sculptures he made. So this is a mobile. A mobile is a type of kinetic sculpture. So when I say kinetic, let me explain you the meaning of kinetic. Kinetic energy is the energy an object has due to its motion. So this is an object. It has an energy. And this energy is its property. Okay, it's its trait. And this energy depends not only on its motion, but also on its weight. So what happens is when this object is hanging, it's a mobile, okay, it's just see it's hanging with one wire. It has a very beautiful equilibrium balance. See how he has balanced this mobile. So what happens is when wind blows, this thing moves. So that is his kinetic energy. Wind is an external factor, but it does have its energy. So when the wind touches this mobile moves, makes sounds also. So this mobile, basically a mobile consists of a number of rods from which heavy objects or further rods are hanging. So you see a rod is hanging, then another rod is hanging, more rods are hanging. You see there are rods, and then this is all metal sheet. He used metal sheet, steel sheet to make these shapes. So this is a mobile created by Alexander Calder. Now you can see all different kinds of mobiles. Mostly are air, mostly are in the air, like they're hanging ones. Then he has the ones on the floor. Again, they're suspended beautifully. He was also known for making wire sculptures. You see, made out of just one wire. Beautifully done. So now this is the size of his mobiles. Not all of them are so humongous, but he made such huge mobiles. Now you can see within proportion to him standing at a bench in a room, and this is a huge hall. It's extremely huge, and that's the size of his mobile. All made out of wires and steel. Now these were his initial sculptures that he created. This is a circus, a very popular one. It got exhibited also initially, only then he became popular. Then look at these ones. They're huge, humongous. Now these ones are really huge, all made out of metal. But again, this one is a tiny one. It's placed in one of the exhibits. You can see his paintings behind. these are his paintings. So you can see that his mobile style is very much reflected in his paintings. You can see the circles, you can see the different wires, how he has used shapes. You see here, these shapes are very, very apparent in his mobiles. Organic, beautifully done. Again, you can see he has been working with primary colors, red, blue, blue and yellow. And of course, black and white, which are the two neutral colors. Now you see here, very much of his sculptures are reflected in his artwork, the shapes. There's a lot of movement. Again, all primary colors, blue, red, and yellow. Again, you see he used gray here, which is it's a mix of black and white, so neutrals. Very small palette. Okay. So that's him. So what we're going to do, we're doing a painting which is inspired by his artwork. I'm not going to replicate an exact painting, but let's start working on his style of art. Okay, so what I've done, I just scraped my paper. It's a regular drawing paper, A4 size. Let me put some, let me tell you, I am going to be using just this three colors, blue, red, and yellow. That's it. Maybe if I need white, I'll add white. And of course, black outlines, I'm going to use these different sizes of markers. They're round tip, board markers. So you can use any size of markers to make your lines, black and white lines. So let's start here so that doesn't. Okay, so what I'll do is, let me think. Okay, it is. So I'm just making these curved lines. How his mobile wires hang. Basically, I'm going to try to reflect that. They are not equal. Some are big, some are small. Some are crossing over the others. This is all extremely rough work, okay? Then let's just make some lines, not using any ruler. Let's see what we can do. Let's just make some shapes. I might just add one shape here. Okay, maybe we'll just have this line. So maybe just extend this shape a little bit more. Make it a very prominent one. And let's curve them a little bit because they are more curved as compared to more pointy. So you just make your shapes, just carve them out. And let's, so this is what I am going to paint now. Very basic, nothing fancy. So let me get my palette and we'll start painting. There we go, my palette. Let's put red. So red was his favorite color. He said he wanted to paint everything red. He liked this color so much. Basically, out of red, I'm just going to push it. Okay, there we go. I'm using a crimson red. So any red that you have, again, say if you have these, a regular red would do, a blue from this palette, a yellow, so anything. I have these big ones, so I'm using the big ones. This is a sallow blue. Basically, it is not written as sallow, it's written as PHTHALO, but it's pronounced as sallow. I really don't know why. Okay, there we go. So this yellow is a little medium yellow. So I might want to use a little bit of white with it, but I'll just see. Maybe I might just use this. So my primary color palette is right in front of me. So I'll start painting. Let's first paint, then once it's dry, then we'll start using our black and white marker, a black marker. Just let me pull out my brush. Okay. Right now I'm using a flat brush, but later I might use a round brush. So let's see. Water, let me put the water. So when I'm painting with acrylics, these are acrylic paints, I don't use a lot of water because acrylics are already water-based paints. So let's see how these colors are going to turn out. If they really turn out dark, then I might be using a little bit of white. You know what? I think I should add white because white adds a lot of opaqueness to your paint. Opaqueness means it makes your paint thick. So I'm just adding a little bit of white here. Very little white because I want to keep the yellow dark. But white is going to make my yellow opaque because this yellow is a little bit transparent, which is not going to cover my paper nicely. So a little bit of white. So always remember that white makes your paint very opaque, makes your paint thick. If you have a transparent paint, You find if it's very liquidy or watery, add white. Little bit. So let's see where I can do the yellow. Not bad. The yellow is looking good. A little bit of water. So Calder was at the time when art was becoming very modern, was becoming contemporary, and that was a time when artists were inventing different techniques. So he, who actually wasn't an artist, he was a mechanical engineer. So he used his expertise of engineering into art. He would actually carry his wires and his pliers everywhere, and whenever he felt like, he would just make art. He called it art in air. So basically, you really don't need to be a trained artist to be an artist. You can be of any profession, but if you have that flair in you, you can become an artist. Okay, so I'm using yellow. Let's set it here. Let's do it. So the early 1900s was a time when art transformed into techniques, a lot of techniques, digital art, which means besides using paint, artists started using different things like uh, Andy Warhol was a very popular artist, pop artist. He started using silk screens to paint, and Calder started using wires to make his sculptures. So art was not only restricted to paper or canvas, it started evolving. It started evolving, and a lot of different materials was introduced. Now it doesn't really impress us a lot when we say that artists are using these three primary colors to paint, but initially they are the pioneers of using just three primary colors. Before that, the Impressionist artists had a very small palette too, but not just working with primary colors. So minimalism also started becoming popular. Minimalism means less of everything, not making it very fancy, not a lot of details, but plain, basic, but at the same time, artistic. So besides Calder, Piet Mondrian is also one artist who experimented with just black and white, black, white, red, blue, and yellow. So let's add yellow here in thin strip to balance it. And then we'll start working with blues and reds. So red was his favorite color, so he used red generously in his paintings. So his father was also a very popular sculptor of his time. And his grandmother, I think, yeah, grandmother and grandfather was a very popular artist also. So he is coming from a family of artists, although he is not trained. He's not trained in art. He was a mechanical engineer. And he used physics in his mobiles. So people say, well, I've read that wherever his mobiles are hanging, they make this really nice sound. Of course, they're hanging in museums and probably in some government offices all over the world. So they do make a sound when the wind blows and the kinetic energy is produced. It's interesting. Nowadays you see a lot of mobiles on baby scripts. So the concept actually developed from Calder only. See, everything evolved from someone or something. Okay, so I think I'm not going to do more yellow. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my thin brush. Just a minute, looking for it. My thinnest brush is a size 2. It's a watercolor brush. Well, we're not supposed to use watercolor brushes with acrylics. Since I don't have a thin brush in acrylics, so I'm just making my edges straight. I guess it's not even needed since we're going to use black marker to cover the lines. Just want to make it slightly smoother. So we all know that three primary colors are red, blue, and yellow, and primary colors are the colors that are the main important colors that we don't make by mixing two colors. Other colors are made by mixing these colors. For instance, you mix yellow and blue, you get green. You mix red and blue, you get purple, and you mix red and yellow, you get orange. So orange, purple, and green are the three secondary colors. Okay, so there we go. I think I'm done with the yellow here. So I'm going to go and start working on my blue. Let me see how dark my blue is. Otherwise, I'll add a little bit of white. So I'm just going to wipe my brush. Just washed it slightly and I'm going to wipe it because I don't want a lot of water being retained in my brush. Okay, and then since I've used yellow, I don't want my blue to turn green. So let's see. So my blue is right here. I think it's a very dark blue. So let me add a little bit of white, avoiding my yellow. Otherwise, it's going to turn it into green. So let me just pull out a little bit more white near my blue. So this sallow blue is a very old color, which was highly used by the Impressionist artists. Impressionist artists were around the time of 1800s, mid 1800s to early 1900s. Impressionism started at the time of Monet. He made a painting of a sunrise and it became to be known as Impressionism. that is when this term got popular and the artists started calling themselves impressionist artists. So once we're going to be doing an impressionist artist, I'm going to tell you about impressionism. So right now we're doing modern art, extremely modern art, very basic line modern art. So let me see what this color is. Okay, I think I can add a little bit more blue. Okay, so acrylics are a very flexible color medium. They are very easy to use, as in you can layer and layer over acrylics. So these are a substitute for oil paints. So there we go. I think this is fine. So nowadays, we don't use a lot of oil paints. It's because oil paint takes forever to dry. It takes days to dry. But again, it's also a very workable medium, as in you can do layers and layers with oils. But again, with acrylics give you a very similar texture to oil, but it's water-based. With oil paints, you have to use turpentine and different mediums to blend it. You cannot blend oil paint with water, but acrylics, you can use water to blend. And it's faster to dry. It's very fast. It actually dries on the palette. So you have to be very careful that you don't pull out a lot of paint. So contemporary art is something that needs a lot of patience because it has details, as in the lines are straighter, the corners are straighter. You cannot do much with blending because the modern artists, not all, but few, they were very high on using solid colors like Calder, like Piet Mondrian, and they did not blend as compared to some artists who did enjoy blending. They liked working with solid colors like Andy Warhol, even Frida Kahlo. Frida Kahlo liked working with solid colors. Frida Kahlo was a Mexican artist. She was also post-impressionism and modern and expressionist artist. Oops, see now this got out. I need my tiny brush again. Okay, now there's one more thing. The ones who are not very trained in using paint, or who are not very comfortable in using paints, can simply do the same artwork using pastels or color pencils or even markers. It's completely up to you. Paint is a little tedious, and especially straight lines and curves and corners. It's a little tricky to do. Okay, so the paper that I'm using, it's a mixed media paper. So this paper has a lot of texture. So it takes me a while to cover this paper. Any drawing paper is good, like a sketchbook paper, that is really good because it's smooth. So since I ran out of my sketchbook paper, So I had my mixed media paper with me, which is a heavy 300 grams paper again, but it has a lot of texture. That's why I have to go back. You see, you can see these whites that are showing. It's because it has texture. And I have to go back, fill it up. But if you're using a plain sketchbook paper, a drawing paper, this won't happen. Your paint is going to go very smooth. But don't use a printer paper to paint. Please never use a printer paper to paint, like a regular printer paper. Because then it starts getting uh, very, because when you're using water and then the paper is not thick, it doesn't show your paint. It doesn't do really good justice to your painting. Then you get disappointed. Starts to create bumps. There is no smoothness. So printer paper is a no-no for painting. Any sketchbook, drawing paper, even a chart paper is okay. A thick, good quality chart paper. So art is basically very therapeutic. It relaxes your brain, relaxes your mind. It does make you tired sometimes. Your hands start to ache, but you can take a break and then start working on your art piece again. Okay, so more blue. Let me add one more area. Hmm. Mm, mm, mm. Just thinking. So let's do this blue. Yeah, let's do this blue. And this brush is not doing justice to my straight lines, so I'm going to use my thin brush. So when you're painting, your hands will get dirty and it's absolutely okay. Don't get too finicky about dirty hands or keep washing them. Don't do that. Acrylics come out easily. And if they get on your clothes, all you need to do is just wash it with the uh, dish detergent. You know, the detergent that you use to wash your dishes, just use that. Surf doesn't do really good to pull the paint out, but detergent does. So the blue that I've used here is a sallow blue, and I've added a little bit of white to make it lighter. Not lighter, I would say a more medium shade. But if you have ultramarine, you can use ultramarine, mix it with a little bit of white, because white with ultramarine is a very, very nice color. And if you have any other blue, like a cobalt blue, that will do, or a cerulean blue, that would do. Any blue would do. If you think it's too dark, just add a little bit of white. So we know that blue is a color that is used the most in art, in paintings. Somehow it's just used the most. Okay, I think I'm just going to be adding a little bit of blue here. Since I just made this line, it was not needed, but I just made it. There we go. Now I am going to start working on my red. Let's see if I can work with this. It's a new brush that I just found in my box, and I'll start working. Okay, let me turn it around here. Red it is. So red is his favorite color, was his favorite color, and he's not alive anymore. Let's start working with red. Red, red, red. Red goes where? Anything, anything. So let's keep these sides white, and let's start putting red in the center. Oops. This brush is quite wide. My red is actually thickening now. So I need to add a little bit more water because it's giving me a lot of strokes that I'm not liking. So here it got a little crazy and it went over the yellow, but no worries, we'll do something about it. Just improvise it. So when you're doing the corners, just use more water to make the edges. Otherwise you will not get smooth edges. So what I need to do is I'm just going to stand and do my painting because sitting is not helping me. We all tend to struggle with our corners and our straight lines. But if you have a good quality brush, it makes it a lot easy. So now I got a little smudge here, but I'm going to be using my black marker, so no worries. There we go. So red is done here. Let's do red here. So let's just talk about this painting that I'm creating. The reason why I'm using these lines and the curves at the bottom is because his mobiles, Calder's mobiles, had straight lines as well as curved wires. So he used geometric as well as organic shapes to create his mobiles. So organic, when I say organic are the shapes that are not geometric. So we all know the geometric shapes are squares, circles, rectangles, triangles. Shapes like these are more organic. So now I'm taking my tiny brush out just to make my corner straight. Okay, so I think I'm done with red here. What I'm gonna do, they look like buildings. Yes, they do. Strange. Okay. Mm, you know what? I think I would like just make one line here and have this area done in red again. I don't know. I think it's just not, it's just looking incomplete to me. So I'm just going to be, So you see, with modern art, there's a lot of options for you to amend, make changes, add things, or make it less. So even these artists, when they used to start painting, they probably would have something else in their mind, and sometimes something else would just come out. They would end up producing something more beautiful than what they actually imagined. Frida Kahlo had that. She kept on painting and she kept on painting, and she would just turn her paintings into amazing artworks, full of expression, full of what she felt. She painted. There. Let's hold it there. Now, okay, now I think I have one more spot to fill. Okay, yes. Let's fill this spot. Okay, so now I am painting this because this is what I thought would represent Calder's style of artwork. So you really don't have to copy exactly what I've made. Make your own design, make your own art piece, but it should represent the style of Alexander Calder's artwork. Either it could be his mobiles or his sculptures, it could be a completely red painting using his concept of huge sculptures that he made, or maybe a combination of his mobiles. I liked his mobiles, so I'm making a combination of his mobiles and his wires and his unusual shapes. So there we go. Connected. There. Okay. So now let's do these shapes in red again, because red was his favorite color and he just loved using red. Again, I'm telling you, if you want to use pastels or coloring pencils or markers, I think markers are a good choice because they will give you a nice dark um, color and they'll be easier to use. And paints, anything that you want to use. Okay, so some artists, modern artists, were very high on using extremely smooth paint, and some artists were okay using slight texture in their paint. Frida Kahlo was one artist who was extremely good in painting. I mean, her work was extremely smooth and beautifully blended. But Alexander Calder did have strokes showing in his artwork. Piet Mondrian had extremely smooth painting paintings. There. Now they're looking like, I don't know, space, mm, buildings in space or something. There. There's two more shapes to go. So we're almost done with our painting. There. Okay, so this one was easy. There. So no more painting shapes. Just going to What is it? My red has a lot of strokes because it became very thick. There. So done with my painting. Removing my palette. Let's start working on the black and white details. So I have a marker. This is the tip that I'm using right now. I'll see if I need a thicker one. So black is something that you can paint if you want to, but I'm not painting it now because it's taking forever to paint. Let's see if I can do the same with a thick marker. So my paper has a lot of texture. That's why I'm having very bouncy edges. But with a smooth paper, this won't happen. So if this is done in paint, it will definitely look better. But I'm making it easy for you. So I'll see if I need more lines and I add more lines. Again, the best thing about modern art is you can improvise. Looks pretty okay to me, but what I can do is I can make these lines thick, as in like this. They don't have to be equal. The thickness doesn't have to be equal. This way it will show more character. There's going to be more variety. I've forgotten where the lines are starting from, where they're ending. So this is looking okay. This side is looking pretty balanced. So let's just make this one slightly thicker. Okay, there. Now, I'm just going to use this marker of mine, and you can use a ruler if you want to. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm making some lines thick, some lines thin. But it's completely up to you if you want to make all the lines thin or thick, or thin, thick, both. So the marker doesn't do much justice over acrylic paint. Okay. There. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm using my round tip again. And I'm going to solidify these shapes more with an outline. There. And you can see the variety of lines, thickness of lines. So this is not, the whole shape is not visible. So we're just going to use the two sides. I'm going to use marker on two sides. So I think I'm pretty much done. I don't think I need anything else to do. So let me take out the tape and see how it looks. Start taking it. Okay. There we go. Done with Alexander Calder's painting inspired by his mobiles. I hope you all have enjoyed this session. So we'll be meeting again in the next session with a new artist. Meanwhile, practice this, work on this painting, and I'll see you again. Bye-bye.